Welcome to the Real Estate Masters Podcast, where we interview the top names in the real estate game. If you want to grow your real estate business, see more podcasts, or get free resources, go to www.remcommunity.com. The only podcast that allows you to directly connect with the guests and many of the highest level names in the real estate game.
You are in for a treat with our next guest. Do me a favor, subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and don't forget to go to remcommunity.com to connect with some of the highest level real estate professionals in the United States through our community and through our high level masterminds. Let's go.
Hey everyone, Tony Javier here, Real Estate Masters. We are here with Chris Prefontaine. Excited to get into some great conversation here. There's not too many people that I know have been in business for over 20 years, and Chris has been in business for over 30 years, 31st year in real estate, done over $75 million in transactions, has helped tens of thousands of people throughout the United States with his coaching programs, mentorships, and all that good stuff that he does. So I'm looking forward to some great in-depth conversation with Chris. Chris, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm great, buddy. Good to hang out again. It's I think it's been about 6 months. We ought to hang out every 6 months or so.
Yeah, exactly. We got to get this on the calendar. Chris was on our podcast about 6 months ago and decided to have him back on and catch up and see what was new. So like usual, just tell people about your backstory. I mean, 31 years, you've been through a lot. You've been through at least a couple of bubbles, real estate bubbles and that kind of deal. So give people a background of who you are and just tell us some of the things you've learned over the last 31 years.
Yeah, we'll be here for a few hours. I'll keep it brief and you can hone me in after that. I remember chatting about both sides of this on my show as well, Tony. And so I'll kind of go leading up to the crash of '08 for the listeners to get some context. I had touched, new construction, rehabs, condominium conversions, your standard realtor stuff. I was a realtor for about 18 of those years at the beginning. So lots of different avenues. There were a few niches I haven't touched, like syndication, things like that, by choice. But post '08, we were forced to redesign our where we spend our time. I just was not going to go through another hiccup in the market where I was on anything personally. It's just not worth the risk to the family and to the assets. So we redesigned everything coming out of '08 to buy on terms, which is just owner financing subject to existing financing and lease purchase. None of those requiring me to put up money unless I want to, and or signing personally. So that's what we do as a family company in New England. But then we go out and teach that all over the country. We've got about 140 or so what we call associates out there doing deals in the trenches. The big difference is, as you probably recall, we do it with them. There's just this crazy gap in the industry where people go take a course and they're promised the world and then they don't go do deals. It's ridiculous. So we do deals with them in the trenches, roll up sleeves and figure out how to get these deals done. And that's what we're doing now. And so it's great. We do exactly what we do in our own team.
Awesome. So tell us about the creative financing. That's something that a lot of people don't do or don't even really know about. So it sounds like you're able to get into deals without personally guaranteeing notes, with very little, if any, money out of your pocket. So tell us how you structure some of those deals.
Yeah, and let me just say, so they don't think, oh, why didn't I hear about that? I didn't. I mean, I heard about it kind of peripherally when I was a realtor. We did 100 homes a year. It wasn't like I was just playing around with a realtor business. We had a good business. We sold it to Coldwell Banker, and all those years, I didn't know the creative space. I really didn't. If I had known then, I would have done a lot more deals, or I would have kept a lot more versus just selling them and get that one paycheck, right? So even the building, Tony, the office building we're in, I don't know if this came up when we chatted on my show, but even that building was bought on terms. It was a free and clear property. So let's talk about owner financing deals because we niche it down to free and clear properties. So about a third or so of the properties in the United States, different pockets vary, but about a third are debt free. Well, that's pretty to swim in. So a pond to swim in. So if you think about right now how hot the market is, that doesn't change how many of these things are debt free, and it doesn't change the fact that they love dealing with math and numbers, and they're usually pretty savvy financially, and they like to extend the terms over time, not get paid out right away. They like the cash flow. If we pay them interest, we don't always. They like the interest, and they like for estate planning reasons too, and for capital gains reasons. So we would structure usually with no money down, to your earlier question, and that's all our deals. Owner financing, lease purchase, and sub 2. The only difference, if you're a new investor, lease purchase is great because deed doesn't transfer, so it's cheap. But those other two niches I talked about, you might have some costs, because I can't go to you, Tony, as my seller, let's say. You're free and clear, and I say, all right, I'm going to buy your home, no money down, and oh, by the way, you pay your transfer tax. I mean, it's not going to fly. So we sometimes come up with transfer tax, and then they're okay with that as long as we pay them top dollar. So that's just 10,000 foot view. I can dig in any part of that.
Yeah, no, that's a good start. So no money down. Like I'm all about no money down. That's how I got started with Carlton Sheets a long time ago. The no down payment system.
That's a name.
Yeah, it's crazy how long ago that was. But he talked about raising money and finding people to fund the purchase and renovations. But what you're talking about is basically taking the equity that an owner has and using that and then financing it for you. So two things come to mind. One is, some people are probably saying, why would the seller not require any money down? So talk us through that first.
Yeah, biggest question we get. So why are we able to do that like 95% of the deals? Because we're usually giving them their price. In other words, think of it this way. Think of a seesaw, and you've got price, you've got the terms, you've got the monthly. I like to stay just within those, and I kind of talk to the seller about which one's most important, and we make it a fair transaction. However, sometimes the down payment and interest will creep in. So now you have 5 variables, and we have to balance those. But if we can stay away from down payment and interest and just say, what is most important, the down payment or the term or the price? We get them thinking price. The guy that sold me the building, I've been in there 3.5 years now. He wanted one thing. He was a big landowner, savvy real estate investor. He wanted price. The realtors weren't getting it for him. He wasn't getting it for sale by owner. He said, I'll structure a deal on your terms if you can give me my price. I said, done. Because I don't care about term. If I'm getting principal pay down over time, and if I put no money down, I don't care what the terms, what the price is. I really don't, within reason. Example, I buy your house. You say, hey, Chris, it's been on the market for 500. I can't get that. I say, I'll give you 500. If I can give you $2,500 monthly principal payments, and I don't make a balloon until say 60 months. Well, that's 30 grand a year in principal pay down. Recession hedge, makes them happy. They got their price, call it ego, call it whatever you want. They're booking that price in their mind. So that's why. That's the short answer. The second is, a lot of these people don't want to get paid out now, and they're very, very happy if they get that top dollar to spread it out over time. Now, 5% of the time, Tony, that we do put money down. There was an oceanfront home, it was $950, I think it was $945. We put $8 grand down. Big deal in comparison to what the house is worth. Yeah. And she was pickle pink because she got a price. That was a realtor, by the way, who sold us that. I mean, it's crazy. You got to solve for the problem, whatever their problem is, or their goal.
Yeah, we had a mastermind last week for a lot of our clients, and someone said it really nicely. They're like, you name your price, I'll name my terms. You name the terms, I'll name my price. Right. Yeah. So it's really just making a deal out of a deal that normally people would pass up. Because, you mentioned a deal. What was the number again? You said 500,000. Was that the number you gave? So someone says, I want 500,000, and I'm at 425 a cash price, and they're adamant about 500,000. Then basically kind of what you said is put, no money down. And when you're getting a loan on a property and you're doing principal and interest, you've got a good chunk of interest going towards the property or towards the deal. But what you're talking about is your payments are potentially the same, but instead of a good chunk of it going towards interest, it's going towards principal. So just so people understand why you're able to do that, right? And man, if you could even extend it out to 10 years and you're paying down that much every single year, then you're paying down a lot on that property. And after 10 years, what is that number? I mean, you pay down what, $300,000?
It's crazy, 30 grand a year in that case. So yeah, that's 300. It's crazy. That there's ways to do this too, where you can satisfy both needs. The building owner, said, he had it all mapped out. I want 5.3% interest amortized over 30. He had it all mapped out. His name was Alan. I said, no, Alan, we usually do. I actually gave him my book, a side note, so he added some credibility. But I said, we usually do principal. So what we came to terms is, for about 18 months, give or take, I paid him principal. I hammered it. Then at the end of that 18, we took the difference in what was left on the mortgage, and then we amortized at like 5.2 for him. So I won big time. I brought my purchase on the building was 550. I brought it from like 550 down to like 459. Boom. And then we amortized it. That was pretty cool. He was happy. I was happy. He got his price. I get a little bit of principal, or a lot of bit of principal at the beginning. So you can do a win-win. It's just that by and large, we don't have to go that route usually.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. Good stuff. So over 31 years, again, you've been in a couple of crashes or bubbles, whatever you want to call them. And we can talk about maybe if there's one coming up soon, which I don't think there is. I'd like to get your opinion on that. What are some things you've learned? I mean, a lot of people ask me because I'm 21 years in the business now. People ask me what I would do differently knowing what I know now. So knowing what you know now, going back 31 years, what would you tell yourself as a new investor?
No particular order. A couple of things come to mind because they're general, but they're super important. One is I almost always had a coach for some area of my life. But if I was to go back to then, I would have tried to have someone help me pinpoint what I want to do, what niche, because there's a lot of cool niches in the business, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not so naive to think just what I do is the one. So pick one that you can get behind, and then grab someone that has done that. And like you said, like you or I, gone through some trends. This is super important. Not just, hey, I had some success because the market changed in 3 years, but they've been through some bubbles and some trends like you and I. And then don't deviate for 36 to 72 months. Like literally don't deviate because there's a lot of shiny objects. That's number one. Find someone, stay with them long enough for you to get some legs. Brian Tracy, 80 something years old now, was on my show. And he said 7 years. He said, it doesn't take 7 years, but it takes 7 years to go through your learning curve as an entrepreneur to have huge success. You'll have moderate by 3 or 4. So stay with it. Second thing is real estate specific, because that could be any business. Don't sign personally, in my opinion. I had investors call me looking at our program. They go, yeah, this bank can give me my 5th loan or my 6th loan. I have good credit. I said, I think it's stupid. Sorry. I don't think you should sign personally on anything unless it's your personal residence and there's a reason you can't find one on terms. You got to get a house for your family. You love it. Great. But all the other deals, why would you do that? Like we buy, with our community and our students, our own community and our students, we're talking like anywhere between 15, 25, sometimes 30 properties a month. There's not money put down and there's not bank loans taken out. So there's enough deals to go around, a lot to go around. Long answer to your short question. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. So tell us about those deals. Let's kind of dig into those a little bit more. So when you put those on terms, what do you typically do with them? Obviously you're paying their price. So you're keeping them longer term. So you keep them for, at least 4 or 5 years. So 5 years is typically the term you do.
We have 2 different exits, but the main one is like 90-95% of what we do and what we teach students. And that is we'll take, especially now, since you and I talked, it's even higher. We take people that need time. They're legitimate buyers, but they need time because of this major onslaught for people going into the entrepreneurial world from corporate America. That's happening because of COVID. People getting hit with credit, but now back on their feet, COVID or no COVID. So all these people that are legit buyers, they have down payments, they have credit and might need seasoning, or they don't have credit and they need some credit repair. That's what we deal with. We put them on a rent-to-own vehicle, but we very stringently upfront qualify them. That's important because a lot of programs that have junk and they throw buyers in these houses that shouldn't be in them. Yep. These are buyers that truly know they're buyers, act like buyers, pay for things like they're buyer and need time. That's what we do. Cash them out between a low of 2 years and a high of 5 years. But the pivot to that to create some more wealth on these deals, to your earlier point, is take a buyer who has performed well, take a seller who's allowing you to maybe extend terms. I've taken a 4-year deal and made it a 21-year deal, to make it work for the seller. So therefore I go back to my buyer and say, hey, Tony, I know we were going to have you get a mortgage in 2, 3, 4 years, but I can finance you now. No stress. You don't have to go to the bank. You don't have to go through underwriting. And so now I got you for 15, 20 more years and you're happy. I'm happy. The seller's happy. We maybe added some interest or whatever we did to get that deal done. So rent to own or owner financing is the short answer.
So on the front end, do you call it subject to? Is that what the term
if
you use?
If on the property, it's either going to be subject to where we buy it or lease purchase where we're just paying it, but it stays in their name. Yeah.
Yeah. And then on the back end, rent to own. And when you say finance, you're saying that because the seller is willing to go further out for you, that you're willing to finance the property for the person that's buying it from you.
Yep. We'll do a wrap mortgage and let them be in there. A good attorney knows how to do that. And they're tickle pink. So we'll give them a carrot, Tony. We'll say, hey, You're accepted. You went through all the underwriting. If you can stay on time with your payments for, let's say, a year, you can do whatever you want. And you can get your deposit with us, which is one of our paydays, up to 20%. So I'm comfortable deeding the property over. Then I can go ahead and change this from a rent-to-own to an owner financing. That's kind of the logic.
And how much do you require for your rent-to-own buyers? Because I'm a big fan of rent-to-own. And like you said, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, someone has a $5,000 deposit, I'll throw them in the house. They have a 560 credit score. I mean, they're not going to finance. You're going to kick them out. Yes, you can keep their money, but it's just not a good experience for anybody except for maybe you. But even those, even those tenants can do damage to the property, and you're out that money anyway. But so for people to do it right, which I feel like we do it right, it sounds like you do too. How much money do you require up front for that rent-to-own buyer?
Good question. We do up front and over time, right? So there's always a game plan. But if you look at our average to get in the house, you're at about 7.5%. I want to get them to 10 if it's not a jumbo loan they're looking for at the end, because then they're going to get in better shape to get a loan. But if it's a jumbo, when they sit down with us, because of whatever area you're in, if it's higher loan, we're going to make sure that they put that 5 to 10 down, sure, but over time, they're going to get that up to 20%. So they win at the end. And it's great cash flow for you. It vests them in the home more and more and more. And at the end, they're like thanking you because you got them to the finish line. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And you can create raving fans that way and get referral business. Once you find someone that can't own a home, but you get them into a house where they feel like they own it. Number one, they're going to take care of it. Right. Two, you've got money up front to where, if something does happen, then you've got that money to fall back on. And you're helping people in a situation. A lot of people just need a kick in the butt to get their credit together. And if you put them into a house when they got skin in the game, they're more likely to get their credit repaired and for them to get a loan in their own name. Because ultimately, that's the best thing, right? Do you like carrying the paper, or would you rather get the loan in their own name?
Some of my newer students, there's different answers what stage you're at, right? For now, for me, my son and son-in-law, we're looking to do a lot more sub-2s or owner financing long-term. So I don't know, maybe my grandkids will have the house someday, right? I want longer-term deals now. When they're brand new though, like Brian in Illinois comes to mind, his first 8 deals were lease purchases, simple $10 down. He created like 800 something grand in 3 paydays. Now he's saying to me, all right, now kind of show me how to do these deals where I can stay in them longer, so it's just like the mentality when you start to learn, you want to get more and more advanced. I call it wealth stacking. You get more and more sophisticated with how you do these. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So tell us how you're set up with acquisitions. This has been a big topic. So a lot of you guys know I run a TV program where I have real estate investors get on TV. And I've noticed that, even some of the experienced investors, their sales process could use a little tweaking. So I'm curious how you're set up and how you run your acquisitions. Some people have lead managers, some people have acquisitions managers, some people answer the phone themselves. They are the lead manager, they are the acquisitions person. Tell us how your team is set up to be able to do the volume of properties you do.
Yep. So I'll back up and come forward. So around 2017-ish, I offloaded everything I did in the field, because it was all me, to my son-in-law, Zach. We then we kind of documented that process and created what we call in the acquisition in our end, a seller specialist, or you'd call it an acquisitionist in some teams, but a seller specialist. After he trained and we got that program set up, we then, and that's where we sit now, have a husband and wife team that does the outbound calls first. So they'll do for sale by owner, expireds, for rent by owners. We have a COVID list now, believe it or not. We have probate. So we do all the lists. Once they get there, and they're appointment setters. So they're going to set an appointment for the other seller specialist who goes out in the field. He happened to be one of our students. He knows what the heck he's doing. So he goes out and gets the properties under contract. And then my son, Nick, takes it over on the sell end. So it's a well-oiled machine now. It took time. I can't agree with you more that it's a frustrating process to start offloading and delegating that piece of the business to get someone really good. Because I was used to just, getting properties, boom, boom, boom. But now we're oiled and cranking. And then around the country with the students, it's a little bit easier because the one-offs add up. We've got 140 some odd associates doing deals, right? So they just do, if every third or fourth of them do a deal a month, there's a lot of deals there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I wrote this down because I've never heard this COVID list. What's a COVID list?
I was surprised. So about 3 months ago, one of our sources said, hey, we have a new list. It's a COVID stress list. So we just started. I haven't brought it to my community yet, quite frankly. You're probably hearing it and some of them haven't heard it yet, because we're on our second, we do a lot of calling. We don't spend money on mailers. We're on our second mailer to this list. So we're tweaking and experimenting with something right now. Way too early to say, yeah, slam dunk. But we're on our second mailing of 6. The leads are trickling in, and we'll see how they go. And as you know, we just launched, as I understand it, your program. So we got these running side by side, and I'll hopefully can report back to you that the COVID list was good.
Okay, so you heard the COVID list first. I've been doing this well, I mean, obviously COVID's only been around a couple years, but never heard someone say a COVID list. So let us know how that goes, and maybe we'll do a little follow up on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Good stuff. What else do you want to share? I mean, 31 years of experience on your side. Like, you've done a lot. You've been around. What are some big lessons you learned? Because I feel like, people have heard successes, and, successes are great, but what are some things that, like, man, I wish I wouldn't have done this. This is something that going back, I would do differently.
Our event coming up is called Back to Basics. It's not called, it's themed Back to Basics. And I was on a mastermind yesterday with all our higher level people. Like, I tend to assume they're going to know something just because it's in my brain, right? I'm bad with that with communication. And the head coaches said to me on our team, hey, we have this theme of Back to Basics. Why don't you go back to basics with the high 6? And I'm always thinking they want more. We call them high 6 associates. That's just a level. And so we did scripts, like scripts, and commonly asked questions. And they were blown away, positive and happy and empowered because we did scripts. So the lesson there would be back to basics always. Like, I said, hey guys, here's 3 things that we got to make sure you do. And they're probably waiting for this major nugget. It was, make sure you always have a lead flow. If you feel like you're low on leads, come to me and I'll show you how to get more leads. Second, make sure you're doing your live calls and then having someone critique them. That was something I never did. So you do a live call, your coach or someone you trust critiques it. In our case, we do it for them. And then they go back and they make adjustments. There is no faster way to learn. And I didn't know that back when I started. Just have someone do that. It's hard because they're going to critique you, but you will learn so fast, and you go and put it in play. Then come back and do another one, then go put it in play. And then the last thing is, when they go on appointments, again, I never had this, have someone with credibility calling on the speakerphone or FaceTime or Zoom and help you. It's so simple. And I went back to that with them. They're like, oh, we didn't know we could do that. This stuff's not brain science. This has been done, Tony. I don't know what I mentioned on your show because I found a newer book that was older, but in the 1600s, prior to banking in New York City, they were doing owner financing before banks. Mm-hmm. So this is not like new stuff. People go, oh, the seller goes, I haven't heard of this. Wow, it's been around for decades. So, get in the game here.
That's cool. I wrote this down again, live calls. So this is something we're implementing with our clients as well. Eventually, we're actually starting to run the calls through our system. So our clients that we get on TV, run the calls through our system. That way we can record them and see kind of certain things. But, and we're trying to figure out how to efficiently grade the calls. We're noticing that, like, since we started doing that a few months ago, that, like, some people aren't the greatest on the phone. They're busy, they're out and about, they're answering the calls. And it just, first impression is a big deal. Yeah. So I like how you said that is, anything you do, you really need, especially if you have people in your organization doing it, is you need to grade them. All the calls that we do in our business, we record, and we're starting to grade those just recently, like in the last few months. It's kind of like when you do a presentation, like if you go speak on stage, like you don't really know how you did. You kind of have a feeling, but then you can go back and look at the video and be like, man, I paced too much, or I said too much, and there's those types of things. So I think that's good. What's up next for you? So you're coaching people. You've got a successful real estate investing business. You mentioned when people start to not deviate for, I think you said 3 years plus, whatever that number was. A lot of people deviate, and they deviate too soon, but you've been in the business a long time. So I'm sure you're at the point where you could add on other things. Are you looking at adding anything else? Or are you looking at just refining what you have?
We adding only in the sense if it brings something new to the community. So for example, your TV program in probate and COVID were new adventures for us this year. And then, so we test and bring those to the community. So we bring ads that'll help with the mission. The mission is always to do transactions. We end a 5-year mission in 22, coincidentally, and we'll reset it for a 3. We're working on that now, 3-year, but it's going to still be centered around transactions. Now, most companies in our space would be like, oh, how many units can we sell and how many programs? We want to know how many families can we help buyers and sellers with our students. And that's what we track. That's super important because then every decision we make is for that versus trying to sell something and forget about them. So more of that. As far as my role there, it's really cool. You know this from building your company, to see the leadership come up. At our last offsite, I was thrilled to see that, you know, the CMO and the CEO and really coming into their own. Whereas if you asked me in 2013, 14, hey, you know, it's you're gonna have a company, I would not have seen that with it not being for coaches showing me that vision. So do more of that, more scaling and more of a chairman role for me, and more some bigger programs for the students. Really cool stuff.
Awesome. So it's basically taking what you have and just making it bigger and better, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. Good stuff. So by the way, guys, if you like what you're hearing, please leave us a review, subscribe to our podcast. We've got a lot of great people we bring on the show. And we're going to continue to make some cool changes later this year. I've got some cool stuff going on. So subscribe and keep up to date. So let's wrap up. We're going to let people know how to find you, because I'm sure some people are like, man, I want to learn more about this, subject to, or this owner financing stuff. So we'll tell people how to get a hold of you. What else would you like to share with the community before we start wrapping up?
Nothing new, Tony. The stuff we talked about with mentors is just super important. You know, in my eyes, I don't know anyone else, I wouldn't enter the TV space, for example, without going, hey, what's up? And you get on my back. Like, it's the same in any niche. Just please do that. And please don't deviate for 3 to 7 years. If you do that, you're okay in the interactive coaching.
Yeah. Get a mentor, man. I tell you, I've been in the business 21 years now, and it took me, I think, 10 years to get a coach. And then it was probably about 2 or 3 years after that I joined a mastermind group, and I'm all about both of those now. Mastermind groups, I run a bunch of masterminds myself and get people together. So for those of you who don't know the difference between, a coach, a seminar, and a mastermind, coach is one-on-one typically. Sometimes it can be group. Seminars is when you go and people speak, but a mastermind is when you can really be around a community of other like-minded individuals and share with each other what's working, so everybody can learn with each other what's working, and then also be able to bring your struggles to the table. Because man, 31 years for you, 21 years for me, we've been through a lot. And I guarantee you, when we had someone to ask, hey, how did you get through this, or how did you solve this problem, it was so much easier having a community behind you. So good stuff, Chris. Well, I appreciate you jumping on. How do people connect with you and potentially join your community? I think you said you may have some free stuff you'll give away as well.
Yep. I'll do 2 things. There's a free master's class, we call it. It's just, if you don't mind listening to me babble for another 55 minutes, I promise you I'll give you a bunch of content. Just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/masters class. While you're in that, just to go to that, we will load you up with the physical hard copies of the hardcover book, the best-selling book that we did. There's several of them. You'll get all that stuff for free and a whole bunch of other stuff, because I want you to go and look for free. I want you to be able to say, is this a niche? Is this a community, the Wicked Smart community? Is this something I can get behind? If it's not, it's okay. It's free for you to look, cost you an hour. And if it is something, I promise you'll have a great experience, and we'll dive in together. So you'll know how to get me through that.
Awesome. Good stuff. So smartrealestatecoach.com/masters class.
Yep.
All right. Fantastic. Well, hey, Chris, it was good to catch up with you. Maybe we'll catch up in another, I'm sure we'll catch up before then, but we'll definitely within the next 6 months catch up again. I appreciate everything you do. And for the community that you serve, you've helped, tens of thousands of people directly or indirectly. And it sounds like you've got over 100 people that are fully engaged with you every single day and every single week in the business. And you're making a big impact. So congrats on your success, and we appreciate you joining us.
Love it. Thanks, buddy. Hope to have you on my show soon, and I'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for listening. Now go to www.remcommunity.com to connect with today's guest, see our high-level masterminds, and to get free resources. Don't forget to share this with a friend and leave us a 5-star review. We'll see you on the next episode.